And that was Premier Danielle Smith from earlier today. Well, to continue the conversation right now, we have invited Minister Randy Boissonnault to the program. He, of course, in charge of the portfolio for employment, workforce development, and official languages, and also the MP for Edmonton Centre. Minister, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure, Michael.
So you've had a meeting with Premier Smith. How do you feel now that you've been able to speak with her face-to-face after the proposal unveil last week?
Well, when it comes to the proposal unveil last week, I left the meeting without any greater comfort than I headed into the meeting. And Michael, you've probably heard me comment on the people that I've been speaking on the phone with. I've attended a number of rallies and spoken with people in my community and across the province who are quite rightly frightened by these proposals and the changing of safe spaces in schools and the sort of mishmash of policies designed to take on and marginalize people who are already marginalized. I said to the Premier directly that I hope that she would stop these proposals. I hope that she would pause and consult with people. And I said that these policies are going to lead to more harm of people who are gender questioning. And I said that if these policies go through, we'll see more young people take their lives. So I have no more comfort now than I did before the meeting. We talked about a bunch of other issues related to what I would call a poor performance on childcare. We gave the province $3.8 billion to put in 62,500 new spaces, both private sector and public sector, and it has not been going well. And she left money on the table in Ottawa last year, and she has a $5.5 billion surplus. So the province can afford to pay childcare workers more money, and it works in British Columbia, it works in Nova Scotia, it works in other jurisdictions. It certainly should work in Alberta. Okay,
so perhaps a more positive, or at least a more productive discussion around childcare. But getting back to the trans proposals introduced last week by the Premier, you have said that your focus here is to make sure that trans and LGBTQ kids in Alberta know that the federal government is going to be here for them. Explicitly, in detail, what do you mean by that? What exactly are you going to do to try to stand up for LGBTQ youth?
So if we take a look at our government's record on this, we put in place protections for trans people in the Canadian Criminal Code and also in Canadian human rights legislation all the way back to 2017. I mean, the Premier is entirely in her jurisdiction, right, to put these policies in place, to tell teachers what to do, to out kids in school, and it's not on. And so, look, we have other means at our disposal. We can mobilize, which is what I'm encouraging people to do right now, to write to their UCP MLAs, particularly those in Calgary and the ones around the Edmonton area, to let them know that they want to see this bill defeated before it even gets to the legislature. And then I have to see the legislation. Like I talked about with some of your colleagues earlier today, Michael, and I said I can't comment on the other measures our government might take until I actually see what the legislation contains in it. But I and colleagues are going to be watching very closely, because I think the other question you have to ask is, why is Danielle Smith doing this? What is she solving for? What is she trying to fix? Because gender questioning kids, queer kids, don't need to be fixed. They're fine who they are. And so I think it's a distraction from some of her disastrous energy policies, some of her mismanagement of the healthcare system and the childcare system that we already talked about. And just to be fully transparent, Michael, we had constructive conversations with Minister Wilkinson on a range of energy files. And I joined the meeting because Minister LeBlanc was stuck in New Brunswick due to the snowstorm. But I was very clear with the Premier that we will find common ground where we can to build up the province. But when she takes on the 2S LGBTQ plus community, she's got to come through me.
Okay, and I appreciate what you're saying about it's hard to be detailed about what exactly you're going to do. But, we have heard some proposals already. Faye Johnstone, who you know, trans rights advocate, also the executive director of Society of Queer Momentum, she basically makes a suggestion that your government should be holding back essentially Canada Health Act funding, because she says Premier Smith is interfering with families' ability to get their children the health care they need. EGAL Canada, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, they're thinking of legal action. Is withholding funding, is taking part in a legal lawsuit something that your government's willing to do to counter these proposals?
As we said earlier, Michael, all options on the table, and I was glad when I heard the day after Premier Smith put this these policies out in her video that Egal Canada was looking at legal action. I'm glad that the Civil Liberties Association is thinking of doing the same. And look, Minister Varani and our government would take a look at both the legislation and the proposed legal action and see if we can intervene. When it comes to withholding Canada Health Act or money under the Canada Health Act, there are some very clear policies and procedures we have to follow to do that. And let me say this, and I've talked to Minister Holland about this. Jean-Yves Duclos, when he was Minister of Health, withheld money from Alberta for contravening the Canada Health Act during the pandemic. And so there's precedent for this. Anne McClellan withheld money from Ralph Klein in the 90s for not respecting the Canada Health Act when it came to extra billing. And so we will follow this extremely carefully, and all options remain on the table.
Okay, listen, quickly running out of time here, Minister, but I do want to ask one more question here, because I'm wondering what you would say to parents who believe the Premier is taking a balanced approach here, something that you don't agree. They believe that she's watching out for vulnerable teens while ensuring that parents have a say in what's happening with their children. Don't parents have a role here?
Michael, the vast majority of parents in Alberta love their kids. And what that means is if they end up being queer, they're going to let their parents know. What I'm really concerned for are the kids for whom parents will not be supportive. And I've had many friends and people in my lifetime for whom, when they came out to their parents or when they indicated that they were going to change their gender identity, it did not go well. And we have way too many kids that end up on the street. They end up becoming trafficked. They end up dying or taking their own lives because of the fact that they don't have those family supports. And for those kids, the school system is the safest space for them, and the Premier wants to remove that safe space. And so to the parents who are compassionate about their kids, we are on the same page. I want to make sure that collectively we protect those kids who don't have that same family environment.
Minister Randy Boissonnault, thank you for the time this evening.
Thanks, Michael. All the best.